going to work on a machine, work in a machine shop, you've got to have a couple years, maybe even associate's degree in training.
Whitmire says that there's no reason that boys should be behind girls. It used to be that when there wasn't as much testing going on, boys were allowed to lag back a bit in reading. He says that most of them would catch up by the fourth grade and stay on a par with girls the rest of the way. He says many boys are put in remedial classes and labeled with a learning disability. Others can be diagnosed with attention deficit disorder, or ADD, and given medications that they might not need. That's the opinion of Dr. Anthony Rayo, a child psychologist at Behavioral Solutions in Lexington, Massachusetts, and author of The Way of Boys, Raising Healthy Boys in a Challenging and Complex World. He says that the diagnoses of behavioral problems in boys has skyrocketed in the last 20 years or so.
If you want to look down the criteria of ADHD, let's talk about ADHD because it has now become the number one pediatric problem in the United States. It's diagnosed anywhere from 3 to 4 times more often in boys, and I've seen research that shows 5 or 6 times more than girls. So it's mostly a boy phenomenon, and it's mostly what's being dealt with by pediatricians in the United States. And we've seen tremendous climbs, particularly starting in the early 1990s, in the number of these boys, mostly boys again, getting diagnosed. It's quadrupled since, I think, 87 or 88. Climbs about 3% a year. Bipolar diagnosing is also up, again, mostly in boys, and all sorts of medications, including antipsychotics, are up. So we definitely have this rush to medicate, rush to diagnose thing.
Rayo says that when you look at the 18 symptoms that characterize ADD, many are not much more than annoying little boy behaviors.
It's fidgeting, not sitting still. It squirms, trouble playing or enjoying leisure activities quietly, talks excessively, interrupts. My favorite, which I think is number 6, often avoids, dislikes, but doesn't want to do things that take a lot of mental effort for a long period of time, such as schoolwork or homework. These are the criteria by which we're adding up and saying boys are more likely than girls to fall into this in these earlier years, and they have a disorder. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that there aren't kids who have really a primary attention deficit problem. I've seen those kids. I've worked with them. I have diagnosed it over the years. I just know that we're casting such a broad net, and we're seeing increases in younger boys being diagnosed. I think it's because of this developmental effect, that they're just not fitting into a longer day, sitting longer, or state-required types of exams and testing that's going on. No Child Left Behind is part of that. And as a result, that fit, I think, is increasing the likelihood of teachers flagging these boys and then getting diagnosed and ultimately medicated.
Kids who are on ADD and other medications at an early age don't have a choice in the matter. It's parents, teachers, and physicians who are in charge. Rayo says that when they get older, young men may resent that they're pegged with a mental disorder.
What I've been finding is, over the years, more and more of these kids want to come off. They don't have a choice when they're younger. There's no kid that rolls into my office and says, "Hey, Dr. Rayo, I'm having a really hard time focusing in school. I'm 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and they see it completely differently, and they often feel a bit hijacked in the sense that, why is it that the teacher sees it this way? Why is it my parents see it this way? I don't like being told that I have the problem, and worse, that there's something mentally wrong with me or something wrong with my brain." And that is what you're saying to a kid every time you hand them a pill. You can couch it any other terms you want, and judicious use of medicine, when everything else has been tried, can be life-saving. It can do amazing things. I'm not 100% against it, but when it's not being thought out, it's a person-only approach. That is the situation I'm finding myself in as a practitioner. And many of these kids, and again, mostly boys, are coming back and saying, "I want off of these," including a couple of boys that I've worked with that have remarkably gone off of all very serious medications in their very early to mid-20s. And so far, fingers crossed, have done great.
Rayo says that no one should quit their medications without first talking to their doctor. He works with pediatricians and psychiatrists to design a regimen to remove medication, change prescriptions or dosages so that the child doesn't crash from going cold turkey. Rayo says that instead of medication, schools should look into changing the way they teach young boys who don't do well in the staid, sit still at your desk kind of classrooms.
In the very young grades, we know that if you were to increase time and breaks between lessons, if you were to be able to let kids have some vigorous physical activity, if it's in the classroom, it might be on a gym mat, it might be with those types of softer balls that kids can lean on and bounce on, it might be something they can go outside and have a more prolonged recess. But if you actually give those frequent breaks, particularly more outdoor time, what we're finding is that the most disruptive, and again, mostly boys, they return and they seem to have no identifiable symptoms of ADHD for a bit. In other words, that release of energy has somehow helped their brain be more organized. They focus better, they sit, they attend, they are less disruptive.
It's such a simple solution, yet Rayo says with the pressure to do more standardized testing, schools don't have time for extra recess or special programs. What about boy-only classrooms? Rayo says he's seen these work out well, but Whitmire isn't so sure enough U.S. schools have the time and resources to plan and do it right. What he has seen that works very well is something called literacy mentoring.
How these programs work is that the teacher is the brain, if you will, and the teacher is looking at this kid, and it's not just boys, but saying, this child has these deficits in reading and needs work on this certain part of grammar. And then that gets passed on to a school coordinator for the volunteers, who then arranges a set of exercises that would help this child. And so I come in as a volunteer, and this coordinator gives me these exercises. I rehearse in advance how to carry them out. And so then I sit there with this student, and I carry it out. So I don't have to be a reading expert to have a great impact on that child. And it really does make a difference. I saw it.
Teaching phonics can also help, as can nurturing a love of reading in young boys. This is something that sounds easy, but Whitmire says many parents in schools are afraid of providing books on typical boy subjects.
You've got to work a little harder. And also, you've got to get over your squeamishness about what boys like to read. So if they want to read about Captain Underpants and some poopy jokes in there, then let them read it. The whole point is to get them engaged, because they will make the transition. If you make them eager readers, they will make the transition to more sophisticated reading later. But if you give them things that they could care less about, then they're just going to drop out.
He says graphic novels and even comic books are a good entry into reading for boys and some girls who have trouble staying interested in the usual classroom texts. You can find out more about how boys learn and what schools and parents can do to help them succeed in Richard Whitmire's Why Boys Fail and Anthony Rayo's book, The Way of Boys, both available at bookstores and online. To find out more about our guests, their books, and websites, log on to our site at viewpointsonline.net. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Christopher Michael.
Coming up, the secrets of fascination when Viewpoints returns.
Fascinating.
Up to 6% of people are
Dr.
allergic to
Spock.
latex. For them, the world can be a hazardous place. Thousands of products from balloons and condoms to bandages and shoes contain latex and may prompt itchy eyes and skin or even difficulty breathing. Manufacturers have tried to substitute synthetics for real natural rubber latex. But synthetics are often less strong and elastic and certainly not green. That's why Bill Doyle, CEO of ViStar Corporation, says his company's new product, Vitex Natural Rubber Latex, is getting a warm reception from product makers.
Skip the latex, whatever that's about. But well, I think one of the biggest educational problems is caused, well, this contributes to it, probably a major cause, right, is that the circulation of vulgarity. So why don't, poor illiterate people, become, Harvard lawyers? It's, corrupting their souls, vulgarity, that's all. That's the whole thing. Why can't they do arithmetic? A lot of kids can't do arithmetic because their parents have issued curses on all kinds of numbers, through vulgar responses. So, what was the ancient solution to that, right? It's like some ancient societies have very beautiful things to say about each and every number. And make sure the kids learn that. They learn that each number is 10, well, it's written, it's deeper than that, each numeral, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and whatnot. You just attach it to a very beautiful idea that it has some kind of unexplained correspondence to it. That's all. And the kids learn that. They're good to go with numbers. They're not going to be confused by, they're happy with numbers. So they're not going to get stuck. Oh my God, it's a 6. They're going to do that. Poor old Rayshon Jefferson. She used to work for my father's business, and she got a famous problem with the lottery, the Maryland State Lottery. Anyway, she has a competent mind, and she was working the lottery machine for I don't know how many months. And all of a sudden she screamed, "I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore." You know, and she would never explain what was wrong. So anyway, we had to move her from the lottery machine to the